Go with the flow. Ride the winds of change. Let the river of life carry you on. What does it mean to flow like the river flows? To move like water, to round the bends of life, allowing ourselves to be changed, to allow ourselves to be moved. And what does water have to teach us about how to live more easeful, peaceful, joyful, or intentional lives? All of us here, all people everywhere, are familiar with water. It's where we all come from. Every human being begins life floating in the amniotic waters of the womb. When we're born, we become creatures of land, yet water is still part of us. We drink first milk, then juice, lemonade, coffee, tea. We play in puddles and sudsy tubs. We sing in showers. We swim in oceans. We wade in streams. We wash hands, cry tears, pour hot water over herbs and let them steep for a while. We watch the rain fall, the snow drift, the storms roll out and in again, the tides swell and fade, the rivers flow. Water persists in a never-ending cycle, falling from the sky or melting from ice, descending to earth, or being carried along by a mountain stream, or evaporating into cloud formations in its ephemeral, endless pursuit of change. Ever transforming, always different, and yet always uniquely itself. Water lives many lives, moving over mountains, winding through valleys, tunneling underground in cave formations, or tumbling over into waterfalls, slowly polishing river rocks into the smoothest stones, cascading from one place to the next on its never-ending journey from land to sea to sky and back again. Who knows where its beginning or its end is? Flowing water often appears, as we know, in metaphors for life, such as the river of life, ever flowing from one moment to the next, at times turbulent, at times peaceful. And another common metaphor where water shows up is the river of time. Time itself. Life calls us on. Time draws us from one moment to the next, and the river of life keeps flowing. No one knows where it's leading. None of us are sure. One thing we know, it doesn't end. We just ride on it for a while. Life and time keep moving, keep flowing, and we follow, we ride along, and over time, along the journey, we are changed. In her popular book, Parable of the Sower, speculative fiction and science fiction novelist Octavia Butler wove prophetic magic into the world of Earthseed, writing about the post-apocalyptic Earth, heavily afflicted by climate change and social inequality and desire to survive. The book begins, if you know Octavia Butler, know that she started the Earthseed. She started her novels back in the 80s, but Earthseed started in her novels in June 2024, so we are in Earthseed now. The book begins, all that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. This reality of change that affects or afflicts or uplifts or carries on all of life is something that every person in this room is familiar with. Anybody here not familiar with change? We're all familiar with it. In fact, we are amidst our own change right now, yes? For today is the day that I, your new minister, am preaching for the very first time. This is a change. And a little over a year ago, you experienced a different change when you said goodbye to your long minister. And there have been other changes. I don't need to name them all. Despite these changes, the river of this community, the water of UU Bridge, still flows. It has its own uniqueness. And over time, the congregation will meet other ministers and welcome more members while also saying goodbye to friends of old. It's just the nature of things. And all along the way, we are carried by the Spirit of life, by our Unitarian Universalist principles and values, and by what we mean to each other. There's an essence that remains through the change. And I must say, I'm so happy to be in this now moment with you today as we travel around this particular bend in the river of life. Thank you for welcoming me to travel with you on the river for a while. So I'd like to pause and just tell a little story. This isn't a personal story, it's actually a Sufi parable that speaks about water and about change, and it seems appropriate for today. It goes like this. A stream from its course in far-off mountains, passing through every kind of description of countryside, at last reached the sands of the desert. Just as it had crossed every other barrier, the stream tried to cross this one, but it found that as fast as it ran into the sand, its waters disappeared. It was convinced, however, that its destiny was to cross the desert, and yet there was no way. Now a hidden voice coming from the desert itself whispered, "The wind crosses the desert, and so can the stream." The stream objected to that with dashing itself against the sand and only getting absorbed. The wind could fly, and this was why it could cross the desert. By hurtling in your own accustomed way, you cannot get across, the wind said. You will either disappear or become a marsh. You must allow the wind to carry you over to your destination. But how could this happen? By allowing yourself to be absorbed into the wind. This idea was not acceptable to the stream. After all, it had never been absorbed before. It did not want to lose its individuality. And once having lost it, how was one to know that it could ever be regained? The wind, said the sand, performs this function. It takes up water, carries it over the desert, and then lets it fall again. Falling as rain, the water again becomes river. How can I know this is true? It is so. And if you do not believe it, you cannot become more than a quagmire. And even that could take many, many years. And it certainly is not the same as a stream. But can I not remain the same stream that I am today? You cannot in either case remain so, the whisper said. Your essential part is carried away and forms a stream again. You are what you are, even today, because you do not know which part of you is the essential one. When it heard this, certain echoes began to arise in the thoughts of the stream. Dimly, it remembered a state in which it, or some part of it, had been held in the arms of the wind. it also remembered, or did it, that this was the real thing, not necessarily the obvious thing to do. And the stream raised its vapor into the welcoming arms of the wind, which gently and easily bore it upwards and along, letting it fall softly as soon as they reached the roof of the mountain, many, many miles away. And because it had its doubts, the stream was able to remember and record more strongly in its mind the details of the experience. It reflected, yes, now I have learned my true identity. Thus ends our parable. Eventually, in the water cycle, all rivers reach the sea, or as this story teaches, all streams reach the sky and come back again. For some spiritual seekers, this is a metaphor for returning to the great vastness that is beyond our individual earthly life. For some, it can be a metaphor for community, that which is beyond ourselves and our individual streams or rivers or tributaries. The original Unitarian Universalist water ritual was originally called the water ritual, included 8 women bringing together water from 8 different sources, including water from rain, from rivers, and from oceans. When we merge our waters for water communion each fall, we symbolically return to the ocean of our community, if you will, from the far reaches that summer has taken us, and we gather back together again for ingathering. Now, whether we stayed home for the summer or we traveled to far-off places, in July, this congregation takes a break. So we took a pause, we separated from one another for a bit, and the symbolism of water communion can be interpreted in various ways, but one way is to use it as a time to come together again and collectively begin our own cycle again for the new liturgical year. So that's what water communion is. And now let's experience it, yes? So I invite us all to think about these watery metaphors, the rivers of our own lives, and how we flow to connect with others, and where our disparate waters have journeyed from to merge here together today. And we're going to now begin our water communion ceremony. So